Selamat pagi, Chosan. Thank you for being here in the true Malaysian spirit that we all practice. Thank you for joining us this Saturday afternoon. We are afternoon? No, it's still morning.
Oh, still morning. I thought you were going to say true Malaysian spirit of Malaysian timing.
Yeah.
Apologies to everybody.
Yeah, apologies. We are Kita Family Podcast. We are here for the first anniversary of our podcast, and this is our live show. Okay, before we start, I need to explain who we are and where we started and what Kita Family is. Malaysian way in Bahasa Malaysia, Kita Family Podcast adalah satu podcast yang membincangkan perihal berkaitan dengan makna serta kepentingan hidup bermasyarakat, menghargai keunikan serta kepelbagaian sesama kita dan meraihkan masyarakat yang berbilang agama, kaum, kepercayaan, rupa dan juga keupayaan. Kita menghargai hidup secara inklusif yang mengambil kira keperluan segenap lapisan masyarakat, terutama mereka yang kurang dan berkelainan upaya. So we are here for the voice of inclusion, for breaking barriers and making Malaysia a more inclusive society. Who are we? I'm going to start from my left, extreme left. Desiree. She is a mother, the founder of Project Hans, named after her son, her neurodivergent son, Hans, and our adik, who's always nudging us to do what's right, and cepat-cepat kena buat, who we cannot do without. So a big shout out for Desiree. On my left here is my comrade, Nori Abdullah. I don't know actually how to introduce her other than the fact that she's all in one. She's the person who wears many, many hats, from a politician's daughter to a politician's wife. But her main issue is giving back to society. She's been brought up to serve, whether it's through the foundation of her late mum, Yayasan Budi Penyayang, or through her own efforts of the founder of the Kids Gym, We Rock the Spectrum, a place where any child can go and any child doesn't have to say, I'm sorry. Nori Abdullah. Most importantly, she's a mom of 3 boys. Okay. Then next to me here on the right, Didi or Nick Nadia, graduate with TESOL, who has many skills and a mom of 2 neurodivergent children, both girls, and one of the moderators of Autisma Malaysia, the Facebook page, who has a wealth of experience in dealing with what's out there and what people on the ground feel. Didi.
Thank you, Anit.
Her dimples always make us very cheerful. Last but not least, Dr. Choi Sokwin, or who we call Kakak SK. If you actually have her calling card, it says mother, right? So she is a trained medical doctor who is also the founder of Oasis Place and who is completely in allied health, immersed and determined to bring better allied health to Malaysia. And we have all been beneficiaries of her efforts. And to have her part of the podcast is awesome because she's like the remember what they said, and she's that voice of calmness. Kakak SK. Okay, I'm a lawyer and don't know why I'm a podcaster. And in the process, I need to thank President Ezri Abdul Wahab, for giving Mira, who's also in the crowd, and me the platform in the Bar Council by setting up the ad hoc committee of the persons with disabilities. Thank you, because now within the bar, we are able to advocate for persons with disabilities, something that we were doing in silo sometimes. Thank you, President. And thank you also for giving us this space, and to Mrs., who's always been our biggest fan. Thank you. And for sponsoring us today so that we can celebrate our first anniversary. Last but not least, our biggest sponsor, BAC Education. www.bac.edu.my, that's where you find them. And with this sponsorship, it's my personal view or my personal aspiration that satu hari nanti kita ada neurodivergence kat BAC yang membelajar, dan satu hari nanti di Bahar Council dan di dalam majlis peguam kita ada individu neurodivergent yang akan excel dalam apa-apa bidang yang mereka nak. So that is our aspiration.
Yes.
Manifesting it today, you know how couch manifestations work?
Yes.
So without further ado, we're going to start our first live podcast in conjunction with our first anniversary. Can I just say that we didn't think we'd get here. We started a year ago at the KL Podfest, and I just went with the flow. Now we've recorded 51 episodes.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Today is 52, so technically, literally one a week. We've gone out there, and we really didn't even know whether Malaysians needed to hear us, did we? Yeah. But look at our colours. We're all like true blue Malaysians.
Very colourful.
Yeah. So our attire is always Jalo Gemilang. We believe in inclusivity, and that's why today's podcast is entitled Voices of Inclusion, Breaking Barriers for a Better Tomorrow. We also need to acknowledge that because of the Bar Council Ad Hoc Committee on PWDs, we've always advocated for complete inclusion, and our forum, which we had last year, had a sign language interpreter, and today we have one too. So a big shout out for Miss Go and her team. We are also extremely honoured that today, in addition to President Ezri, we have the President of the Law Society of Brunei Darussalam, Encik Zainidi Abdul Hamid, and his Mrs. Puan Shara Abdul Hamid. Thank you for being here and embracing us in ASEAN. Hopefully we can cross borders too. Thank you very much. So maybe the same aspiration as we have for the Malaysian bar to be inclusive, we extend it to Brunei too. Thank you. So dengan semangat satu Malaysia dan dengan semangat kita ni anak-anak Malaysia, we'll kick off this podcast. This podcast is going to be slightly different because when we were planning it, we said, okay lah, kita kan banyak cakap. Tapi hari ni, sebab dah setahun, you know, whenever you go somewhere, there's America's Top 10, there's British Top 10, we are going to do a recap and discuss that recap. So today, we're going to have the top 10 snippets that went a bit viral, if we can say so ourselves. Itulah kadang-kadang tak tahu kan kita shock sendiri ke macam mana.
Yeah, shock sendiri. That was an overstatement.
Tapi kalau kita tengok views and likes and comments, so kita lah dah pilih ikut 10 snippets. So the top 10 snippets will be paid today. So that will be our way forward. So look forward to your questions. And with that, we're going to kick off. So are you ready for the first snippet? And the first snippet is by me. And it was on understanding and accepting the diagnosis of your child. Because a lot of parents today, especially, they plan their pregnancies. It's not like maybe
our grandparents punya era ke our parents punya era where they just go along and everything is a natural process. Everything today in life is according to a plan. And when the plan doesn't work out, there memang ada isu mental or mental health yang terjejas. And that itself can cause a hindrance to acceptance. And sometimes adalah lack of education or lack of knowledge. Kalau mereka tiada pengetahuan atau info berkenaan apa yang anak mereka didiagnose, then acceptance pun menjadi masalah sikit.
You know, I had a lot of reflection bila reviewing the snippet tu. Selamat pagi all. Actually sebagai ibu bapa, kami semua ada impian. Impian yang anak-anak kami akan menjadi dewasa yang bertanggungjawab, anak-anak yang sihat, actually sihat first, berjaya. Tetapi apabila perkembangan anak menyimpang dari hala yang ditujukan atau dijangkakan actually, penjaga atau ibu bapa sering menghadapi cabaran yang agak kritikal lah. And that, I'm just reflecting in all that. Ia mungkin merupakan adakah reaksi, should we react, atau reaksi tu membawakan banyak kebimbangan, berasa takut, ataupun kadang-kadang shutdown je lah. Ibu bapa yang shutdown mungkin. Tapi kalau dapat merespon, so in response, mungkin akan dapat menggunakan kemampuan yang boleh merancang untuk mencari solusi. So that's the science. Adik-adik ni always know I'm a fond not a scientist but like to learn about the science. So dalam itu biar saya berkongsi bersama our journey when Joshua was diagnosed. So anak sulung kan? Bongsu. I will get it right one day. Bongsu, anak bongsu kami. Checkpoint. Was diagnosed unusually at that time. This is maybe 14 years back. 14 years back. Was diagnosed with autism. And I want to acknowledge here again the gratitude to Dr. Ng Swee Yin, who is a pediatric neurologist. She helped us recognize, and with that recognition, took us to guided us to the developmental specialists, that team of them. The early diagnosis was critical, but what was equally important was actually the early intervention therapists and support. It's actually support. It then was the late Dr. Lim Boxy, the pediatrician, specifically in her humbleness. In her humbleness, she says, it is not me, but it's going to be your therapist that will make the difference. Now, that has stuck in my mind, and I continue to share that. One experience that really opened my eyes was when my husband and I attended the Autism Research Institute conference. And what it showed us was the vital role of parents as partners in learning, as a learning process. It's a process alongside the healthcarers, the professionals. Our OT, now retired, Jeanette Swen, she continued at sessions to provide us, the parents, the learning, the understanding, not the facts, but the understanding. Then it became knowledge. And So this actually fundamentally became what we understand as Oasis. We practice that approach, having a trans-discipline where parents are a key part of that professional team. Yeah. So for my husband and I, understanding neuroplasticity, the science that has got brain ability to adapt and to change, itulah that anchored our hope. It anchored our hope, and it allowed us to see moments of little success that sikit-sikit jadi bukit, and it was fascinating. I continue to be fascinated. Now, I know that there were many moments of unfamiliar disappointments, unfamiliar behavior. Yeah, really unfamiliar. There were kind of setbacks. There were fears coming in all the time through that journey. And just to come to a conclusion, I and my husband, we continue to draw on Professor Stephen Shaw, 4 A's, which cites A of awareness, A of appreciation, and then we become actually accept first. Yeah, we aware, we will accept it, then we appreciate it, we fall in love with it, and then we act. Yeah. So, and he says, if you've met one autistic individual, itu je. That is the one, because each and every one of us are unique. Yeah. So, ibu bapa sekalian, pejuang-pejuang sekalian, silalah menyambut anak-anak neurodiverse kami yang kami sayangi. Ya. Bukalah hati untuk diagnosis awal dan sambutlah intervensi awal. Ia akan menekankan kepentingan tindakan yang berinformasi, sokongan yang kolaboratif, dan menerimalah perjalanan unit ini. Setiap anak individu atau individu yang berlainan keupayaan, kami pasti berjaya bersama-sama.
Thank you, Kakak. But Desiree, that was not according to plan, right?
It's okay.
No, as in...
I'm stepping out of my comfort zone today.
So with that, we're going to go to the second snippet, which features Desiree. And it is on a mother's role on acceptance. So Kakak has laid that foundation. And Desiree speaks on a mother's role of acceptance.
Memang sangat unik, kan? Saya takkan guna perkataan mencabar sebab the word here is unique. Sebab kita bukan setakat ibu sahaja kepada anak-anak kita. For me, I'm my family's Grab driver. Anak ada terapi, ada sekolah, siapa yang bawa? Mami. We are also cikgu dan therapist. And therapist dalam pelbagai masuk therapist, whether it's occupational therapist, speech therapist, or in some cases psychologist juga kepada anak-anak kami. And our role as women as well, in addition to being a mother, we are still wives. We have roles to our husband, right? And for me, I also have a very active role as a daughter to care for my parents as well in their old age now. So memang saya akan guna perkataan unik. Peranan kami sebagai wanita dan ibu di dalam keluarga sangat unik.
Betul kan? Yeah. I want to reflect on one incident that happened in court. Why we say peranan ibu sangat unik. We are not in any way downplaying the dads. A big cheer for the dads too. A lot of them play a big role. Bukannya mereka tak buat, tapi peranan ibu tu lain. It's a nurturer, and I reflect on this one incident in court where I, as a young lawyer, was acting for a husband whose wife was challenging and trying to get a variation order on custody in court. And Justice Suryadi came on the bench and he looked at me and he said, "Do you know in the Quran, it is Umi, 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 right?"
3 times before dad gets mentioned.
Yes, 3 times before that gets mentioned. And I didn't know that. Okay, I
Actually, it
learned that.
was something the Prophet said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your mother, your mother, your mother. Okay, your father. I added the okay. But, yeah.
Okay. So when he said that, in that context, I was expecting my first child when I was doing that case. And to have the child then become neurodivergent, I realized that the role of a mother is multifaceted. And Desiree was right. We take on that additional role of nurturing. We nurture because we can. We are not as cut and dry. We are a little bit more
Warm and fuzzy.
warm and fuzzy.
Instinctive.
Instinctive. Desiree, what more?
We are also the one with the back Doraemon. We're always prepared with everything all the
Yeah.
time.
Back to Raymond.
Back Doraemon.
We are the encyclopedia.
We are the encyclopedia. So you know, and sometimes when it comes to daddies, it's like wondering, tapi kata nak buat ni, kenapa tukar tiba-tiba? You know, we get that all the time, and we have to be a parent to daddy sometimes too, to say, tak, kena tukar sebab anak kena tukar kan? So betul tak Nori?
Flexibility.
Flexibility, yeah. And kadang-kadang kita kena lambat 10 minit sebab anak tu perlukan masa yang lebih untuk buat sesuatu yang kepada anak neurotypical sangat
That's easy.
Raymond
natural.
naturally comes easily. So for that reason, peranan ibu itu sangat penting. And I think it's all in every faith. And so a big shout out to the moms. So if they celebrate Mother's Day and Father's Day with the same vigor, I would say a little bit more to the moms because they take a bit more time to do research. I know of many neurodivergent families where the mom goes for the courses and comes back and briefs the dad. So memang the mom has to sit through 2 hari kursus, and then the dad gets a 1 hour over coffee made by the mom briefing summary, and the question is, so what's next? So what's the plan? So the mom's also the planner, right? So that is always the role of the mom. So any last thoughts on that?
We're going to continue. There's a
Yeah.
flow. So I think we can move on to the next
Okay.
snippet. It'll tie in quite nicely.
So the next snippet is on acknowledging the different hats that moms wear.
That finishes off what you were
Yeah.
saying.
Like they say in English, you wear different hats. So topi berlainan. So ikut pada masa tu. So apa yang perlu dibuat pada masa itu, topi itulah seseorang wanita pakai. So if at that point dia perlu beri keutamaan kepada anak dia untuk jadi kaunselor, dia jadi kaunselor. Perlu untuk jadi tukang masak, dia jadi tukang masak. Perlu jadi Grab driver, dia jadi Grab driver dengan supir. So it's it's an evolving role. Tapi in the end, scientifically, the nucleus of the family.
At least berapa hat tu agak-agak, Anit? In a day?
Oh, tak boleh kira. Depends on the day. So if it's a difficult day, if you're working, maybe more than 10 hats sometimes. And it depends on how many kids you have too. Sebab kesemua anak-anak ada keperluan sendiri. And then kadang-kadang kena jadi mediator, counselor, break up their fights, suruh mereka bertolak ansur.
Itu baru satu sebagai ibu.
And then sebagai wife, daughter-in-law, daughter, niece, depending on your family and how big and diverse it is. Oh, kena jadi personal shopper juga tau.
Itu yang paling best.
So, I think like Anit, sebelum saya mengulas syuretan tadi kan, saya memang nak mengiktiraf lah sebenarnya. We're speaking a little bit about moms and I'm going to also further emphasize why. Tapi, I do want a proper shout out to the fathers of the neurodivergent kids especially. You know, they also wear a lot of hats. Fathers will wear many hats. Now, like the papa in our family, I think, macam yalah, dia tidak mungkin membayangkan pada satu masa dahulu bahawa ada satu ketika dia masih perlu membantu anak remaja dia mandi, salin baju. I don't think that was ever any part of the plan of a mother or a father, but especially a father with dreams and ambitions and wanting your mini me. So fathers also, I think once we get into the neurodivergent context, memang the fathers. But why? Apakah tujuan kita memilih juga coretan ni antara the highlights and things like that? It's like I think kita perlu menerima hakikat bahawa ibu di zaman sekarang, ibu terutama ibu yang bekerja and all that, dia wanita-wanita ni selalu menyulap sepanjang hari dari waktu ke waktu, juggling, right, moving from one role to the other. That's why seperti yang dilambangkan oleh Anit, changing hats, tukar-tukar topi, seolah-olah this is to reflect the role, right? What am I doing at this given moment? Sudah tentu like ramai, well, especially like in Malaysia and Klang Valley, we are dual income household. Isi rumah memerlukan pendapatan yang lebih sebab memang kalau tidak beban keuangan terlalu tinggi. So ibu dan bapa bekerja. Now, dua-dua bekerja. They all go out, whether it's their 9 to 5 or full job. But for some reason, at this point in time, with all the education, with all the awareness, everything that we know, there is still an extra load and responsibility on the mom. Somehow both go out to work, but at home, mengurus rumah, persekolahan anak-anak, whatever you speak about, from meal preparation or, even whether it's a laundry or something like that, somehow there is an extra load on the women. That is the reality of where we are today. We are not yet, but I hope, inshallah, the next generation, there will be maybe perhaps a little bit better balance and an understanding that everybody has to get involved for everything, right? Both mother and father can be nurturing. Both mother and father can be disciplinarian. Both mother and father can figure it out. But look, this is where we are. And if you look at all of this, then it becomes even more important for, again, the awareness to grow in society. To accept that if you want to raise a family and children successfully, again, that whole thing about it takes a village. Right? You cannot do it alone. You cannot be expected to take that load on. And if you happen to be a listener of our podcast, we say it's not just that village and that kampung. It has to be the biggest kampung ever. Everybody needs to be on board because our neurodivergent child or the family member who has disabilities needs more support, needs that extra from everybody around. So we bring this up just to know, to recognize that if you pause and take a moment, this is probably true for your family as well. So what does that family need? What does that mom need? What does that child need? And we want that awareness to grow so that truly everybody has a right to live in this very supportive community. And it's there. It will be available. So not just because you're lucky enough to live in a nice kampung, in a nice neighborhood and street, and you have nice neighbors, or your community center happens to be really nice. You have the best clinic kesihatan happens to be around the corner from you. It should be like that for everybody, and everybody needs to play that role to get that to happen, and that's what we hope.
Yeah, so socialization is extremely important. Next snippet, please.
I don't know if I didn't get it, or I thought therapy can manage the thing. So even though still autistic, dia boleh lah. Dia boleh, buat apa seperti orang yang lain. So then the therapist, I think dia pun macam dengan muka dia yang nampak lah very, kesiannya, this mother, how do I tell her? So she was like, he will always be autistic. He will maybe always be like this. Therapy ni is to help manage him, menguruskan. But kita tak boleh nak kata kalau lepas kita dah buat sebanyak terapi ni untuk jangka masa begini, dia akan okay. So that somehow hit me, and then I think was really, really the first time I cried and cried. and just was suddenly sort of in shock and everything, all of that, just to feel everything, right? You have to feel those feelings at some point. I think it is still news yang you tak expect. You didn't think it was going to happen. And it's not the same as, oh, this is terrible. It's not that. But it is a shock. It is something that was not planned. So you will have those feelings of shock and fear and worry and some sadness. And I think you need to process all of that.
Okay, so bolehkah anak saya yang didiagnose menjadi anak neurodivergent jadi macam anak orang lain? Didi.
Okay, firstly kita boleh nampak kan emotion Nori masa tu cerita. It shows that bila anak dah diagnose pun kita ambil masa bertahun-tahun untuk faham autism tu macam mana. Ni let alone kita nak society faham. Jadi it takes a lot lah untuk semua kita faham apa tu autism. And talking about therapy ni dia bukan macam medication. Kalau kita ambil ubat darah tinggi kita terkawal, turun. Tapi terapi ni lebih kepada latihan. Kita bagi skills kepada anak kita dan cara melatih tu berbezalah compare anak normal, anak tipikal dengan anak neurodivergent. In fact, kita yang normal ni yang pergi sekolah kebangsaan kan, kurikulum yang sama, adakah semua jadi lawyer?
Tak ada, I sekolah kebangsaan.
Kan?
Nori sekolah kebangsaan.
Kita pergi sekolah yang
kebangsaan.
Saya pun sekolah kebangsaan.
Kita semua anak sekolah kebangsaan.
Jadi the outcome is different. Even kita yang typical pun, neurodivergent pun sama. We're not just talking about limitation. Dia punya strength. So bila kita cakap neurotypical, nama pun neurodivergent. Neurologinya berbeza. Jadi boleh ke kita train? Not saying, because what is normal? There's no standard. Kita jadi dewasa pun from a person to another person tak pernah sama. Tak ada yang sama. Jadi kita nak mengharapkan autistic ni boleh cured dengan terapi pun, mungkin they would have strength. Then they can be better than the typical person. They can. Because autism, they have special interests. They can develop skills. So, kita kan selalu fikir tentang perbezaan, tapi sebenarnya ada kekuatan juga, ada persamaan. Persamaan dalam ada perbezaan antara kita. Perbezaan antara sama-sama normal, perbezaan antara sama-sama autistik. Jadi, jangan kita rasa terapi ni boleh mengubati because you cannot change who you are. Because autism is a lifelong condition. You can develop and get better skill. You can, of course. So again, we do hope that therapy is more accessible and more available. The availability is not the same throughout Malaysia. And now I'm in KK. I also realised that it's not the same. The amount, the number of centres is not the same as in KL. The quality, the method that is used in KL and in other parts of Malaysia is not the same. And of course, in other countries lain lah kan, lagi lain. So we want it to be available because potential. We're talking about potential. If we can provide this platform, this training, please. This is hard. This is not about privilege. Every kids, everybody, if they need things that can help them live and function better, they should have the access to it. So that's what I really believe in lah. Kan?
May I add something?
Sure.
As you were saying, Sebenarnya, I say to the parents, actually, this is a specialist topic tuition. Because sebenarnya, as parents, we are more familiar and we're familiar with tuition, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you need a specialist tutor on that topic, kan? So I said, bagilah masa untuk tuition pertuturan, tuition occupational therapy. So if we embrace that, it is not a privilege.
It's not.
It is not.
So on that note, maybe I can ask Nori, what do you think of those that will say reda je lah with a diagnosis?
Okay, I will take that question, but I also want to kind of go back. I think the beginning of that snippet and the reason why Didi has explained what the role of therapy is, right? What you can expect and should expect from therapy, and at the same time, what the limitations are, is because I was recalling the fact that I used to think that therapy was going to fix everything. So bagi saya, anak saya yang nombor 2, dia adalah seorang anak autistik, dan bila dia menerima diagnosis, kami sebagai keluarga like terus action mode. We were prepared to take action and terus mulakan dengan perancangan intervensi, terapi segala macam. So that moment when I had that realization and cried was when it's sort of I was told and finally realized that the autism is going to be lifelong, and the therapy did indeed have limitations. So it's 2 things, right? It's one, this is what it can do, and it is going to be life changing, and ia sangat-sangat diperlukan. Memang kita menggalakkan semua keluarga, ibu bapa cari peluang, dan ini bukan peluang lah, seperti Didi yang sebut tadi, sebenarnya hak untuk mendapatkan terapi. Tetapi kita juga kena menerima lah hakikat apakah peranan terapi ini, dan perlu digabungkan juga dengan bermacam faktor yang lain. So if we're talking about breaking barriers today, we're also looking for all the different things, and we'll talk about them more in detail about community support. It's about the law of the role of law, public policy, governments coming in. How does it play its part in making sure that every person can achieve their potential, right? Every citizen can live that life of meaning and purpose. So coming back to Reda now, Reda is very important. I think at some point in time, kita semua kena sampai pada tahap that kita dapat menerima dengan baik, ya. So kalau dalam bahasa Melayu ni ada perbezaan di antara reda dan pasrah. Pasrah tu macam terpaksa lah menerima, very reluctant. There is a kind of like an acceptance, but it's almost like you're forced to take it because that's the fact, and you have to deal with it, and it's very heavy. When you reda, you are, I guess one way of looking at it is like you accept very openly, you can be pleased with it, and this sort of attitude is of course something that we want, because an approach of an acceptance and openness for your child is good for your child. Now, I think what Anit was alluding to of the type of reda is that we don't want a situation where you are so reda that you think that's it. Okay, this is good, I'm all happy, this is my child of paradise, anak syurga. Anak syurga is a very common term that we hear. So it's like, that's it, I just have to accept and I don't have to do anything. Now this is a problem. So we talked about the importance of those 4 A's. Acceptance, once you're aware, you accept, you appreciate, and we want that 4th. The 4th thing is so important. The 4th thing is the one that makes a difference. So kita tak naklah reda kepada tahap di mana kita fikirkan kita tak perlu buat apa-apa. That's not what you want. Kita semua perlu berusaha. I think whatever your religion, faith, belief, if you have some kind of belief system, you know that it is important for you to act. Your own efforts, usaha, apa yang kita nak usahakan ni penting, while at the same time we are praying, asking for help or turning to divine, understanding there's something greater than us. That is also extremely important. But you cannot just do only one without the other. To only pray but not do anything is to sort of give yourself the answer to your prayer. In a sense, it's only, it's not taking accountability and responsibility for the fact that you are here. You have agency. And then to only just do stuff and not remember that you are a part of something much larger, and there are things that are bigger than you. And then for those who believe in faith, of course, that there is a creator, there is a divine. But I think for everybody, in a sense of grounding, for humility, recognizing your humanity, to not forget that part as well. So things go hand in hand. So reda for the diagnosis, important, tapi janganlah pada tahap yang kita tak melakukan apa-apa.
Just a short one I want to add. Because kita mothers, kita dah beyond reda already. But we want the society to be reda that part of us ada neurodivergence. Then if you say that you want to serve the community, that includes serving neurodivergence as well. So please, we want it to be that level. We're going to break the barriers and because they have the same level of rights and everything again.
Yeah, on that note, we're going to get the next snippet, which is about talking about socializing and how that can be tough for neurodivergent kids.
I would lean towards giving the children opportunity to learn about socialization very concretely, because it doesn't come to them naturally. If you look at the diagnosis of the diet of autism, sebenarnya dia ada dua. One is social communication challenge, and the other is that need for repetitive behavior to calm them down. So kalau dia challenge, we need to slowly allow them to learn and feel safe, and then they can expand their ability, which is otherwise hidden. Kan?
Desiree.
Socialization. Interesting. You know, if you look at the actual definition of autism in the DSM-5, the three main criteria are social communication, social interaction, and repetitive behavior. And socialization ni, it appears dua kali kan in the diagnosis. So it goes to show it's that much more difficult untuk mereka yang dengan autism and neurodivergent. And come on, among all of us, really how easy it is to socialize. How many of us really find it so easy to socialize, right? I think even in this room, there are some of us who are probably closet introverts, or I used to be a super introvert, right? But really grateful to my son for pushing me out of my comfort zone. And I now come across as someone who's very social, which truthfully I'm not. So a revelation about Desiree today, she's not a very social person. So it's been really difficult for me, actually, the whole socialization process. And if we really look at it, socializing ni boleh menjadi satu proses yang sangat menakutkan. Meeting new people, going out into the world, different environments that where you cannot control, especially those with autism who already have sensory processing challenges, and then keluar nak bersosial lagi. It's hard, and I think we have to acknowledge that it is hard. I have a friend in the UK. She's autistic herself, and she has 2 autistic children. And I remember this story she told me. She went for her friend's wedding, and she loves her friend, right? So she wants to be there for her friend. She had a great time. She socialized, you know, like it was her most social day. And then she went into hibernation for almost 2 weeks because she had reached her social quota, right? And I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that while it's difficult, memang susah untuk ada antara kami untuk bersosial, but let's still give everyone the opportunity to socialize, right? And so how can we make it easier for someone who maybe finds it a bit awkward? So first thing, like we always say, and I learned this from our kakak, is let's be inclusive. Let's always aim to include, right? So even if it's someone who's non-verbal, and I remember also Nori told us the story of, you know, Timor, and came to a point where he just wants to be included, right? Even though he may not appear to want to be included, but he wants to be there, right? So even if someone, and in my case, my son is non-verbal, he doesn't speak, he wants to be included, but he may not participate in a way that you think is participating, but he really knows what's going on and he just wants to be part of the process. So always invite a person to be part of whatever social circle you're in, whether it's a conversation, a meal, a group project in college or university. We hear stories, you know, from those in higher education where they find it challenging to do group projects. So my call to, you know, people out there, friends, families, give the opportunity to be included and ensure it's a safe space for them. So give them an out, right? Just because they don't respond to you or they don't look at you when they're talking, they don't mean to be rude. They're just protecting themselves. right? And so how do you do this? How do you learn to be social, or how do you learn to be more inclusive for someone who's neurodivergent? And I know we are all Oasis families here, and they have some great programs, not just for our children and our adults who are neurodivergent, but also people who are not neurodivergent who want to learn and to be part of the movement that includes. So, any of you want to shout out some of the interesting activities that they have for others to join?
Maybe mother of Oasis Place
Yeah.
can say something. Oh, I'm happy to as well.
Nori,
Silakan.
you start and I'll follow.
Okay. Okay. The reason also why this is brought up, socialization, the need to actually help people to learn how to, and then to ask everybody else to be kind and help make it easier, is that, human beings inherently actually are social beings because we have to live with each other and we need each other. Now, when your neurodivergent brain makes it a bit more difficult, or, sometimes it's not even the neurodivergence, as Desiree was saying, tak sama bagi semua orang. Ada orang yang memang mudah berkawan dan berinteraksi, suka berada bersama ramai orang, ada yang tidak. Tapi kita memang perlu berkomunikasi dan memang perlu berinteraksi. Tak boleh duduk seorang. In English, like, no man or woman is an island. You don't live alone. So you need these skills. So places like, Oasis Place is a multidisciplinary intervention center that believes in continuous learning and supports families and the build-up of community as a whole, right? They believe in building all of that, and how you do that is by building, the skills and knowledge for yourself. And one of the things that they do, which I really love and have benefited from, is a lot of options for workshops and seminars and courses and things like this. Some at the level of professional development, and some open to everybody. And you can literally, like when Desiree said, how do we actually do this? Well, you go learn, like the tuition, the tutoring that SK did mention before. There are options available for you to break it step by step. Because in some ways, for a lot of people, even if they're not so social, some things are natural, right? At some point in time, you do learn how to speak. You start making words and sounds, and then you learn the language of your surroundings and your family. But it does come naturally in that sense. But for some people, it is not. So you do have to be taught step by step. There are skills which are considered pre-verbal, so you want to support that, and that maybe can come through occupational therapy or sensory integration. Your body has to be ready to produce the sounds. When you produce the sounds, then maybe you can produce words, or if you cannot speak, there's different ways, other ways of communicating, right? So there are places where you can go, and if it's not to those centers physically, there are options like Connect online.
So if I take that on, thank you for that. I think the key words I want to focus is inclusion.
Yep.
And for the digital citizen, Google lah social communication. Yeah. And then there are many specific programs of learning that will also, you can Google the keywords social emotional learning. Yeah. So that's for the digital citizen. Let me come back to the inclusion, which is so important. What we experience through the years, for me professionally and as a carer, is the learning in actuality is not that the neurodiverse client learns alone. Sebenarnya, it's the other person.
Yep.
It's the typical person, the neurotypical person, who then allows socialization not to be in the model that we are familiar with. Malaysia, Nori, you always remind us. We are really an amazing country and nation to be inclusive. By nature, by birthright, kami sudah diverse, berbangsa, yang berlainan.
Yeah.
So let's pull that in by our birthright and practice it. We culturally are different. So there is a culture called neurodivergent, and if we learn together, not learn together, but let us enjoy together being together with each other in the ways that is typical for each other. Yeah, that's inclusion for
That's
socialization.
Yeah, I love that.
On that note, we're going to go to the next snippet, which is going to be on staring.
Check ourselves, apakah niat kami when we are staring. For example, I've been in situations bila anak saya meltdown in shopping centres. I pegang, berbag of my grocery semua. I just, put it on the floor. I duduk atas lantai with my child, and a lot of people are staring.
Yeah.
Kan? Tapi in that moment, for me, sebab maybe because I have a bit of thick skin, memang I tak kisah orang pandang and stare, but you can feel it. Kan, you can feel the stares in some cases, the judgment.
Judgy.
And the meltdowns aside, okay, that maybe is a granted lah a situation because there's noise and whatnot, right? People can't help but stare. Tapi on the other end of the spectrum, my son steams a lot in public, so flapping and spinning and
Itu cara biasa-biasa lah. Itu kan
Kena
meltdown.
verbal.
Itu
Bukan
dia
meltdown.
keluar. Hans keluar je. Jalan-jalan
Yes.
sama mak.
Exactly. So for me, it's like I've never felt a need to tell him, Hans jangan, orang pandang. For me, it's like, tak apalah, dia tak ganggu orang. He's not harming himself. He's not harming somebody else. So I'm in my own world, la-di-da, just going about. He's there steaming, running up and down or whatever. But I have gotten stares. People sort of expect me to stop him or keep him in check.
Okay, unpack that. Yeah. Apa ni pandang-pandang, tengok-tengok ni. Hey, you're making me uncomfortable. Stop staring. See, when people stare, you rasa uncomfortable kan? And then kenapa you stare? So kenapa kita stare? Kalau ada dengar kan commotion, ada mungkin tantrum kan, loud noise, ada budak menangis kuat, kenapa kita tengok firstly? Sebelum kita stare lah. Stare tu pandang lama kan? Kita tengok sebab bila kita tengok sebab kita nak tahu. Tengok, kita nak assess. Kita kan apa panggil kepoci lah. Apa jadi tu? Apa jadi tu? And then dah tengok. Lain kan, tak pernah tengok. Tengok lagi, lama dah jadi staring. Sebab kita curious. So curious in bahasa Melayu? Anyone knows? Curiga. Tak adalah curiga.
Nah, itu suspicious. Next level.
Rasa ingin tahu. Kenapa rasa ingin tahu? Sebab belum tahu. So dekat sini barrier dia adalah knowledge, pengetahuan. So kita tak tahu. Tengok apa tu? Patut pelik lah. So kalau kita ada knowledge, kita dah lebih aware, kita dah tak rasa pelik tu. Itu steaming je. And then kalau dia flapping tu, he's just regulating. He's just being happy. Macam ni kan, I tengok semua orang duduk diam je. Cuba kalau pergi konsert, ada tak yang duduk diam je? And then you sing along. Nyanyi lebih kuat daripada penyanyi pun ada. So orang sebelah macam, I'm not here to hear you sing. So good one. Itu normal. Kita rasa macam expected. Tak apalah. So bila kita faham, kita tahu autism macam ataupun kita ada macam mungkin ada suspicious lah, macam mungkin dia autistic kot. So tak apalah. This budak ni neurodivergent. Dia lari-lari tak ada risiko nak jatuh ke apa. Biarlah. Dia happy macam tu. So perbezaan kan ada beza, tak sama yang kita. So kita dah tahu, kita dah tak curious, kita stare lagi tak? Kita dah tak stare. So the barrier.
We give a smile.
Kan kita dah
it's
macam
an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Mother to mother.
We give a smile, they give a smile, we nod and go bye. And ada buat kawan juga kan?
And perhaps someday kalau ada budak yang meltdown ke apa, because we already understand, so we know how to help. So don't just stare, because staring making the mother uncomfortable and the mother pun panic. Not everybody as calm as Desiree. Kalau I macam ramai-ramai tengok hello, like macam, because we need to be very calm kan in that situation. Kita nak anak kita pun tenang, nak menenangkan anak, and then dengan rasa malunya, rasa ni. So kalau kita dah faham, mungkin ada nak boleh bantu. And of course we talk about it in other episodes where we talk how you guys can help. So check it out, our other episodes, how to help in public when it happens. So anything you want to share, Nori?
Actually, just to add on, sometimes that staring, actually the danger of not understanding, is unfortunately the individual that is on the floor the fear of they doing some harm. Bila dia tak faham, the people around them tak faham. Even with the police force, they get restrained. Then what do you do when you get restrained? I want to demonstrate, but janganlah. When you get restrained, what's your natural reaction?
To fight back.
Yes. Yeah.
So there has been many unfortunate, and it continues. Sama ada di negara yang memang sudah develop globally, when there's not enough awareness, sebenarnya we are the one who cause, we are the perpetrator.
Of further harm.
So if I can really invite, we berdoa lah, this bersebah, that don't be afraid. Do some breathing, minum some water before you restrain if you can. There are occasions, we acknowledge there are occasions, so there needs to be, again, a lot of learning. But first, go with curious. I love how you describe the translation. Go with a curious inquiry. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Now, the next snippet is about public places and how they can be more inclusive.
Soalan-soalan yang selalu ada dalam support group online, ada orang akan tanya, oh saya nak bawa anak saya pergi bercuti, dekat mana yang sesuai? Jadi parents akan mulalah share tempat mana yang mereka ada pengalaman yang baik, pengalaman yang bagus, contoh theme park yang mana, hotel yang mana yang sesuai, destinasi mana yang mereka dapat pengalaman yang menyeronokkan lah, pengalaman yang baik. Jadi di sini menunjukkan sebenarnya it's not just for charity. Well, I hate to say that dia bukan charity tau. Jangan rasa macam kita buat sebab kita kesian. Kan? No, it's not about that. It's for economic purposes as well. If you do it, you attract more of us to go to your place.
Yes.
I like to take that.
Yes.
Yeah. So now I wear one hat. I call out to members, my dearest members of the entrepreneur organization. I'm a member of the Malaysia's chapter, but EO has got a global membership. And this is the message. If we do not serve 20% of the population, can you imagine 20% of your customers are unserved? That's opportunity. So ada startup di sini, sila dengarkan. So bercuti, cuti. Speaking as Malaysian, cuti pun we shopping, cuti pun we go hotel, or what do they have now? Those
We makan.
No, okay, he'll come back. Accommodation, not break and breakfast. The other one. So
Airbnb.
Yeah. Okay. So whether we bercuti and spend time indoor or outdoor, the business opportunities for food. Here I want to shout out first when you mentioned hotel. 4 Points Hotel in Chinatown. They know that I can request for a gluten and dairy-free and egg-free because of sensitivity. So I make them my regular lah. Aside from that, Nori, I enjoy the cakes from Bukari. Jean, thank you so much. That makes parties, makanan, and we order it regularly. So service providers, do know that there are great opportunities to be that inclusive, but it contributes to your profitability. It does contribute to your turnover, up to 20% more. That's quite significant if your margins are very low.
Because that's the number of if you accumulate all the different types of disabilities
Thank you
and
for-
developmental conditions in the world, it comes up to about 20% of your population.
Yes, correct.
And they don't go alone, they go with families.
Exactly. So the multiplication effect, actually I know although we are concentrating on autism, but people with physical disability, they do have amazing spending power as well. So But even before we get indoors, or maybe when we are indoors, our cry is as we look for all those commercial profitability, let us invest. Bolehkah invest in the toilets? Because banyak ada petanda-petanda toilet for disability, tapi
Actually not accessible.
Yep.
it may not be accessible. Sebenarnya, our government, other laws, we are very fond of working together with the Malaysian Institute of Planner that has got a bigger picture to design, to plan for
Universal
what is
design.
now universally designed
Spaces,
locations. Yeah. Thank you, MIP, for being part of inclusiveness. So the toilets, oftentimes, first, not accessible is one thing, tapi bila sudah masuk, they are not maintained. The locks tak boleh dikunci. So just for basic integrity of any toilets. In fact, I love the bathroom here. It's for everybody, right? But I do think that the signages, there's now time to include hidden disability. Yeah, there are now some new signages, universally designed, not only for wheelchair, but to indicate there is a hidden disability. So, of course, we enjoy traveling. We have to fly from A to B. A shout out again for the butterfly program
At KLIA.
at KLIA. And as we travel, I recognize now more and more international airports, not only in the UK, in India. I've seen ramps built specially to elevate the height of the wheelchair user to the height of the immigration officer. It is not special. It's inclusive because on that same counter, you can have both typical as well as people with disability. I've seen it in the Middle East. So we are very excited. So please, to enable us to consume, we need to access. Yeah? So with that, do open your hearts, your minds, and plan in all this, what we call physical environment adaptation, and some really at no additional cost. Kalaulah you plan as you are on the drawing plan. If we have architects here, if we have interior designers here, that is a huge movement now for doing social impact in your physicality.
Okay. The next snippet, it was on whether services are actually adequate.
Sebenarnya kat Malaysia ni kita dah ada program yang bagus. We have the experts, we have the facilities, tapi facilities ni tak cukup dan manpower tak cukup. That's why we heard like kids going to PPKI yang ada deemed terpaksa dikeluarkan dari PPKI, kena balik pergi PDK. Ada yang nak apply pergi PDK penuh. So the good program tu dah ada. If only we have more classes, more centers, more schools, cater for we are talking about school age lah. Because training wise it won't be a problem because we already have the experts. We already have the very good program. Like Permata Kurnia, very good. They are trained. Memang they have good training as well. So macam it's not about we have to learn from other of course we have to learn from other countries, but what we have in the country is good, is already very good. Tapi the resources in term of lebih cikgu-cikgu, lebih terapi, and macam di hospital juga kita nak lebih kerap lah therapy session. Tak adalah sampai up to 8 months sekali baru boleh jumpa untuk speech therapy dekat government hospital.
Government hospital, yeah.
Yeah, so
Bukan tak ada.
The quality is very good.
Okay, so this is a very interesting one.
And a pet peeve for Desiree.
Yes, and the short answer is memang tak cukup. Memang. I mean, if you look at the numbers, I managed to pull out some numbers last night, and we also talked about it in a recent episode as well, right? As of October last year, 65,191 are registered with autism and learning disabilities, but we also know for a fact that this is an inaccurate number because not everybody registers. Conversation for another day. And ada juga artikel keluar di Utusan Malaysia in January this year that says kita perlukan 6,000 lagi pakar terapi autism. That's a big number. And by the time we get these 6,000 people, there'll be more kids and adults diagnosed, and you'll need another 6,000, right? So first thing I want to acknowledge is that yes, memang tak cukup dekat Malaysia, tapi bukan dekat Malaysia sahaja yang ini tidak mencukupi. We have this some of us have a tendency of, let's go to US, let's go to UK, Australia and whatnot. All these countries I just mentioned also have shortage of therapists. I think the NHS waiting list for an autism diagnosis is up to 3 years. If you're an adult, right? So there is a shortage even closer to home. If we look like countries like Brunei, for example, Indonesia, Philippines, and even Singapore. I Googled it last night. Singapore also, although their government provides early intervention programs for those who are before school age, they have waiting lists up to 2,000 to 3,000 people on waiting lists. And by the time they can get in, they're already school going age. So this shortage is everywhere in the world, not just Malaysia. So what can we do, right? What can we do? So, let's taking a leaf out of Kakak SK's book. We're always encouraging more and more of our local talents to please stay home. And it goes to show that we have the local talents here. If our local graduates are going overseas to practice, sebenarnya kita tak perlu pakar dari overseas. Pakar-pakar kita memang dari Malaysia ada ramai. From our local schools and our local universities, right? I am a proud alumnus of local universities as well. We have the professionals here, right? And training and development is not as difficult as it used to be. We have online learning, right? And there are also a lot of opportunities now to diversify your skills. For example, even if you are a lawyer and you suddenly decide, hey, I think I want to go and teach in a sekolah pendidikan khas, you can, because there are courses offered, and most recently, I think is going to be offered soon, Diploma Pasca Siswaza Pendidikan Khas by USM. So they are offering this postgraduate diploma. So these are for graduates who already have a different type of qualification, but you want to either get the certification or you just have the love of this special needs, right? So you can go and upskill yourself and be part of the community that teaches and does therapy. And like Nori also always emphasizes, parent training, right? Parent training comes in many forms. It doesn't have to be like going and doing your masters in that area. It can be short courses, long courses, right? And not just, so my special shout out now is not just parents, but if you have a family member or a friend who is autistic or neurodivergent, why not take a short course and learn? Right? So by learning to interact with people in your family or your friends, you are actually also learning to interact with everyone else. And trust me, when you go for these trainings, it actually helps us interact with everyone. Similar to the point about businesses, right, Kakak? If you serve the 20% of people who are slightly different, you are actually serving everyone better because you know how to serve that 20%.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And we have professionals around.
Yeah.
We now lead to the next snippet, which is about getting the professional help and actually taking time to go and get help when you need to.
I would like to also say there is professional help. I think it's very important whilst we try to self-help. Do not forget. Yeah, and jangan
I benefited
bimbang.
from that. Yeah,
Jangan
of course.
bimbang.
Yeah, do it.
Get the professional help at different levels.
Klinik kesihatan pun ada kaunselor.
Betul. Yeah, ada counselor, ada psychologist. Get professional help when you need.
Yes.
Even make those calls to befrienders, to anybody who will lend us a listening ear. Yeah.
Yes.
Nori.
Okay, so in that snippet with SK, that's my voice in the background. Kalau tak berapa jelas, what I actually said was I benefited from that, from professional help. So here at Kita Family, we try to do two things as the builders that we imagine that we are, the connectors and the builders. We want to help people build their own skills and resilience, right? To support every single person becoming better. So that training, that increasing knowledge and what you can do for yourself. And then we want to build the awareness because we want all of community, we want everybody at all different levels, everybody to up their game, to improve, for us all to be there. Now, that means that you can get to a place where there's a lot that you can do for yourself, right? Being more independent, being able to do more for also the person that you're caring for dalam keluarga, ya. Tapi kita juga memang terus memerlukan peranan dan bantuan daripada orang yang lain. We mentioned that earlier today in the show. But, when we live, we look to somebody else to fix our car, right? We go out sometimes to eat and go to service providers and things like that. So the therapist and the counselor and the professional help that we've mentioned here is actually a critical role too. Because we are also trying to build awareness about the fact that things that are related to intellectual, mental development and health, they are as real as physical issues. So physical issue ni mudah faham. Sebab kita jelas nampak. Kita nampak kan kalau orang jatuh sakit, dia ada sesama atau luka, benda ni semua jelas. So kita sebut tentang hidden disability ni kerana kita tak nampak. Dan kalau ada permasalahan atau diagnosis ni berkaitan dengan benda-benda seperti tingkah laku atau benda-benda yang berlaku di dalam bahagian dalaman, ya, or like sensory system, things like that. It's not obvious. But kalau kita tak nampak pun, it is real. When you have a mental health breakdown, you need to go and address it just like you would go see a doctor if you are coughing and coughing and coughing, it doesn't stop. If you have broken a limb or a leg, you need help. You need that professional help and support to recover. These are real. So, hidup dalam keadaan di mana kita menghadapi COVID dulu adalah sesuatu yang sangat perit. But antara benda-benda positif yang mungkin telah berlaku adalah kesedaran tentang kesihatan mental. That this is as real, right? Suddenly everybody is experiencing it. You cannot deny it anymore. So professional help and professionals, people who are involved in therapy and counselling, allied health professionals are very, very critical and important. And also why Desiree was mentioning, memang tak cukup, not enough, because we're going to need them. When you think about, how much we depend on our service providers. Just now we were talking about doctors, also when you are sick, but also there's so many things that we need. So we have to recognize that those professional therapists, counselors and all that are also needed. And we should go and see them. We're hoping that there's going to be, no more stigma. Inshallah, God willing, that is not something that anybody has to feel very bad about now, or shy or ashamed. Get that help if you need it. And if you see somebody ada antara kesan-kesan yang kita, mungkin simptom-simptom kita boleh nampak di kalangan kenalan kita, ahli keluarga, kawan, reach out, bantu. My bestie is here in the audience. She noticed when I was having some problems. It turned out to be a burnout. Sent me over for therapy, not my son. And it was a really fantastic and wonderful thing that she did. So we hope that it gets to a point where kita tak payahlah tunggu orang lain yang, terpaksa meminta kita atau menyuruh kita pergi untuk mendapatkan bantuan dan pertolongan. Kita mahu sampai kepada satu tahap kesedaran dalam masyarakat kita pun bahawa these things are real, happens to everybody, sebahagian daripada kita sebagai manusia, dan kalau kita perlu bantuan, pergilah dapatkan bantuan daripada pakar.
With that, also I'm going to do a...
Just before we move, because it is such a current and important message. I just want to just extend a little bit on that, Nori. Thank you for sharing that. We know a lot of the stigma is because it seems so personal. It is personal, and the vulnerability is to be able to share that, and that's part of the restoration of good health, good physical and mental health. It's okay not to be okay. So netizens and all of us, that is a very important resource if you Google that to help us, what Nori mentioned just now with the bestie. And I mentioned earlier, it was somebody else who lent us their lens to alert us, to get us to help. The pandemic has done us a great favor in mental wellness or mental health awareness. The good thing is it brought it forward. We are seeing a lot more requests for help, support, and the unfortunate side of that is it is coming at a very young age, and we are talking about preschoolers. So parents, be aware. It is not now a purview of adults that used to be. There was the whole world stress, or if you want to use the extent the word trauma, including our children who did not get a typical socialization, did not get typical support. So please, cikgu, ibu bapa, nenek, datuk, look out for this and get that professional help when ada tahap lah. First you help ourselves, then maybe the cikgu will also help. Then when it comes to a situation when you are not happy, I think
no,
that
deal
is the
with it
simple
when
one.
it's small before a secondary infection or a compounded problem, exacerbation of the illness.
Absolutely.
Just like you take your vitamins or something small or whatever, when you just start your sniffles, just deal with it. Then it's going to be okay. So don't freak out that your kids are maybe in need of a therapist. Therapist is like maybe going to go and see your doctor or counselor. Like
It's
you
a
said, it's like
specialist.
getting tuition.
It's a
Just go
specialist.
sort it out so that it stays small, and then you don't have to worry about it. If it happens again, you just go. But it becomes a really, really big thing, and you start worrying about anxiety, depression, all this other stuff that can happen because if it's left unattended. That's why we had those things happen. The serious things come because kita tak menangani masalah bila benda tu masih kecil.
Right.
So
And
it's okay.
also, it is not the purview of the psychologist. Bukan di brainnya saja. I want to really shout out to movement. Your sports therapist, your sports trainer is a professional. Is a professional who will let you move and get the rest of all your hormones, neurohormones, all working. Coaches.
Yeah.
So do go and at different tahap lah. And at different comfort zone, connect dulu. Connect dulu, jangan bimbang. It will flow. Be happy.
Before we play the last snippet, I also want to shout out to Bao, who's in the audience, who is a counselor in the Klinik Kesihatan. And he has, in a lot of ways, intervened and served Malaysians like all his colleagues. So that profession is probably a bit underrated, but absolutely essential to the well-being of most
And he did it
Malaysians.
just fine as a neurodivergent
And
person.
they do it just fine, even as a neurodivergent person.
Wow.
Our final snippet is a snippet by Nori at our launch at the KL Podfest. It was something that resonated with everybody, with every parent. Let's hear it.
We have been told how our children, how our family members, the people that we know who are a little different, should be kept home. So tak payah keluar lah. Duduk kat rumah, tak perlu dikari. Well, let me take you all the way to the trajectory of why that's a problem. And one of the biggest concerns that we have as parents, apa nak jadi dengan anak kita ni lepas kita dah tak ada? So if I don't help to support my child be as independent as possible, set up everything as possible, whatever supports that he or she may need, I'm going to have to do that, because what's going to happen, this is the scariest thing. We've spoken to people who said, and can you ever imagine to be someone who wishes that you and your child might die around the same time or soon after? I mean, one of life's greatest tragedies is for a parent to have to bury a child. But when you have a child that needs a lot more than other children, and probably throughout their life, the thought crosses your mind that your child should go first.
This is a question that resonates through every parent of every neurodivergent child who is not able to look after themselves. And I say this because I was in Hyderabad in September last year, met up with a friend who had moved back from Malaysia there and who was now from HR teaching in a special needs school. She has colleagues who have been India's top brains. Some of them even worked as top scientists, who suddenly had a neurodivergent child and because of that quit their jobs, quit being top scientists, retrained to be special needs teachers, and came to a school where they could be with their children, albeit in a different class. These are sacrifices that mothers make. And she said to me that she was a widow, and she said whenever she thinks of her problems, masalah dia kecil. Sebab these mothers say to her, all I pray for is I live just 1 minute more than my child. 1 minute more. Doa seorang ibu. And for that, it is because they feel that nobody will be able to care for their children, or the systems in place are inadequate, tidak mencukupi untuk anak-anak mereka kalau mereka tak ada. So, this is where I have a big shout out to advocates who ask for systems to be improved, for the Bar Council that is asking for mental capacity laws, for lasting powers of attorneys to be introduced in Malaysia so that parents can plan for such eventualities. We're also seeking for better rights for persons with disabilities so that even if the parents are not around, the society and the laws and legislature can help them. And hopefully somebody will guide this child, or a caretaker will say, or a care partner will say, hey, let's exercise our rights. So continue to advocate, continue to ask for better systems, because we do need legislative policy and bigger changes. With COVID, we've had the National Centre of Excellence for Mental Health being set up under the Ministry of Health. It was not there earlier. But now we need more. We will, as part of the podcasters, on our last breath, keep requesting for it. Kita takkan diam. Kita akan terus berjuang berkenaan apa yang perlu untuk Malaysia. Tetapi it has to go and reach the right ears. Help us if you can. You may feel you're the man on the street, tapi you ada suara juga. Okay. With that, I'm going to ask for some parting thoughts. We'll go with Desiree first.
It's interesting we ended on that note, right? What will happen to our child when we're not here. So my parting note is that please learn about how our children are a bit different, especially to the younger generation and the one that comes after us, because you guys are the ones who are going to be looking out for our kids. So please learn more and embrace everyone as they are.
Kakak.
Restoration. It's about relationships. I'm just so grateful. I have very close co-advocates, co-parenting, and I believe we can draw on our natural love and care, natural humanities, to restore in our own individual homes, society, what is our desire for that connection, the connection to people's insan.
Well, kita family podcast. So talking about our children, neurodivergent children all the time. So the hope is for our children dianggap seperti anak-anak saudara dan saudari sendiri. Sebab bila kita anggap seorang tu family, bila kita ada kawan yang kita dah rapat dan kita anggap macam keluarga sendiri kan, kita rasa bertanggungjawab. Kita akan beri lebih, kita nak dia selesa, kita include dia dalam kehidupan kita. So that's my big hope lah, yang dengan semangat kekeluargaan rather than you lain, you neurodivergent, you autistic, I tak faham autistic ni apa. And then bukan ramai pun autistic children, sebenarnya ramai, tapi selagi walaupun tidak impacted personally to any of you, but sebenarnya ramai dalam community kita. So please include us, include our children. As a mother, please include my children, because I don't want to be the one yang, no, it's not, I'm already the one yang terfikir kan, sama lah terfikir macam I want to die after my children die. I have 2 autistic girls, but I hope gantikan in a few years I dah tak rasa macam tu, that I'm okay to die. Not that we can plan, kan? So yeah, that's my hope.
No, I just hope today we add a bit more to the efforts of breaking barriers to inclusion. Right, we want these barriers to come down so that people are not excluded. Just more inclusion in every little way you can. Anything that you can do in your personal capacity. I think we often say this. Think about, a neighbor, somebody you see when you go out, in the gym, a kind word, a smile rather than a stare, anything. Just break that barrier. And of course, for those who can do more, then our hope and expectation is that you get involved with the advocacy that's required to change public policy, that's required to move, the powers that be and the people who have decision-making powers, things like that can, truly make a difference. I mean, we're here at the Bar Council. It feels like a tremendous privilege and opportunity, speaking to people whose job it is to go out there to defend the rights of others. Include everyone, include the people we've been talking about today, people who are a little bit different than you. Break those barriers. Thank you.
I would just like everybody to be the voice of inclusion. I thank you for being here today on behalf of all of us to even join this conversation. That shows your commitment to even learn and to broaden your horizon and your knowledge on issues about a community that is very much a part of us. It's been going viral for a week now that Bill Gates has said that if he was any younger and he was a child today, he would have definitely been diagnosed to be on the spectrum. If he can make it to the top of the world and make a difference to all our lives, who hasn't encountered Microsoft? Everyone has. But this neurodivergent person who claims that he is neurodivergent has made such an impact. Just give everybody else who is neurodivergent with hidden disabilities a chance, and you don't know what they can do to make your life better. So please be that voice of inclusion, break those barriers, and thank you very much again for being with us today.